Is California wasting its water? That's one of the top questions that we are answering all this week on To The Point. The ABC10 Weather Team is investigating where our water is going and if we're wasting it. As reservoirs are forced to make some major releases, tonight meteorologist Carley Gomez looks at if the water could be stored elsewhere.
My fear is that you have a wet year and everyone forgets about the dry years.
It's been a struggle farming with no water. Daniel Bays, like thousands of other farmers, have had their bout with drought.
I would say the stress is probably the hardest part. Part of it, being in the office, looking at the numbers. Part of it just being out in the field with our employees. They depend on this for a job, but a lot of them enjoy what they do and take some pride and ownership in growing a crop and feeding the world.
But dealing with drought isn't new. We can trace it all the way back to 1933. California began re-engineering our water delivery with the Central Valley Project during the Dust Bowl era to deliver water from Northern California to the Central Valley through canals.
California was in the midst of a historic drought. There were just many, many wells going dry, drinking water wells, agricultural wells. Lands were sinking, just a real concern that this is kind of spiraling to a place that is not good for the future of these regions.
And the seriousness of drought has farmers looking for alternative ways to save water. About 400 miles of California's valleys have about 515 underground water basins. But what happens when all that groundwater is not there? Well, communities are hit hard.
You can drill down there and there might be enough water for a domestic well for a house, but if you were going to try and farm with it, the amount of water you get out of there would be such a minimal amount.
If more groundwater is pumped than is replenished, there could be subsidence.
In some places, sinking over 6 feet. In 2014, California passed the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, giving local water agencies about 10 years to make plans and find solutions to conserving water. Ellen Hannock works with farmers and water managers.
They have to develop long-term plans, look at the numbers first of all. What's the nature of their problem? What's their solution?
The Woodland Davis Clean Water Agency is one example.
The city of Woodland had originally been on groundwater for about 100 years. We switched to Sacramento River surface water in June of 2016. And as part of that project, the city embarked on an aquifer storage and recovery program.
The system of pumps and pipes funnel water from a clean water source like the Sacramento River. A small amount of chlorine is added and is stored underground.
The aquifer layer that we are using is 500 feet down, 50-foot thick layer. At every well site we have in the city, both the native groundwater wells and even farmer wells outside of us, that layer exists kind of everywhere around here.
The big question has been, if there's that much aquifer storage, why aren't we doing more to store excess water underground? Scientists are now beginning to see a clearer picture by mapping what's underground from the sky.
AEM is the airborne electromagnetic surveys that we're doing across California. Think of it as MRI for the subsurface. So it's a way that a helicopter carries a large hoop about 100 feet off the ground, and it sends electrical information into the ground, which bounces off different layers below the ground surface.
This technology is finding where sands and gravels are in comparison to clays and silts. Water is easily able to seep deep underground where sands lay, but with clay, a buffer is created. And NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory is taking it even higher with satellites.
What we really get from satellite information is the ability to see the big picture. So contextually, we can kind of tie the whole story together. And we can say, it's not just this farm or this well that's changing, it's the entire southern portion of the Central Valley.
Stanford geophysicist Rosemary Knight has spent 30 years working on geophysics for groundwater management in California.
I think there's a real opportunity here to help the water agencies now work with these data and see how these data can help them improve and inform their planning.
Knight and researchers from UC Davis found something out of the Ice Age.
They drew an area on a map and said one of these end of the last glacial period paleo valleys has to be here. We took the airborne EM system and flew back and forth to see if we could find it, and we could. It was right there in the data.
These old paleo rivers were formed when glaciers during the last glacial period started melting quickly. The water carved pathways from the mountains to the valley, moving large amounts of rock and grain material.
It's like a fast path where if we can connect with it at one location, we can actually move water down deeper within the groundwater system of the valley.
For third-generation farmer Daniel Bays, the hope is that his kids may have the option to continue farming in California.
My hope would be that if this is where they want to live and they want to continue farming, that's an option for them, that it's feasible and there's a long lifetime ahead of them where they can do that and pass that on to the next generation if that pleases them.
Carley Gomez joins me now. I mean, a lot of incredible research and information going on right now.
Yeah, there's so much happening and so much technological advances that are happening that just make this whole scenario so much easier to finally see what's underground and hopefully provide us a lot more resources when it comes to saving our water.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you, how do we get water down there?
Yeah, it's a big issue right now. There's obviously, we saw some things there where you can see it funneling down on its own naturally. And then you see those paleo areas where they're finally finding areas where they can actually do it themselves. And if we can detect those spots, we can maybe find a way to funnel some of that snow melt into those direct areas and find more ways to fill the underground water storage.
Thank you, Carly. And this conversation continues. Water Wasted is airing again tomorrow on To The Point. But meteorologist Brendan Minchef will be here to discuss the Delta Tunnel. It's arguably the most controversial water project in the state right now. That's tomorrow at 6:30.